start? You want to lead it? Good morning, Church Ohana.
Good morning.
Aloha.
Good morning, Good morning. Aloha.
Let's see here.
Good morning, Uncle Dave. Welcome.
We'll stand up and sing page 244. Page 244, we'll stand and sing Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Amazing Grace, page 244, Amazing Grace. Levi, can you unmute his guitar, please? Number 2. In Hawaiian, up on the board. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved the wretch like me. I was lost,
right. Uncle Dave Payne, can you pray for us this morning, please?
Thank you, Lord, for another beautiful day. Thank you for all our blessings. Thank you for letting us assemble together here to sing your praises. Thank you for the Lord Jesus Christ who saves us all. Yes. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
You may be seated this morning. That wasn't you, Levi. That was me. You can turn off that screen, though. Brother Levi Newman, if you haven't met him, he's in the back. I knocked something on the piano. We're not going that way, church. Don't worry. But isn't God good? Today, Uncle reminded me, I get so flustered and caught up with different things, and Uncle turns around and he says, today marks the anniversary of when Queen Liliuokalani was arrested, right, Uncle? And siege took place, and Uncle will talk about that later. But we have a deep history in Hawaii, and one of the things that reminds me or when I think about the history of any nation and any people, one of the things that really makes me pleased and makes me proud is the fact that we could see God's goodness and God's grace throughout history. The fact that God has been good and God has taken care of us and His people is a testimony of God's goodness. Before I start, I got to get my list. I'll have Uncle Ron come up. But even before that, I was thinking about how good God was, and had a lady that here on island got sick and had to be medevaced. Thanks for taking off the FX. It's only for a little while. Brother Levi will get it in the back. First week, new guy on the job. But it's helping taking care of a lady. She had to get medevaced and go to Oahu. And she was adamant about me just taking care of her place, and it was really bad, in bad shape, because she just couldn't move, and she didn't trust anyone else to go into the house but me, and take care of her dogs. And her dogs got out of the kennel, and she was very adamant about them staying in their kennels. And so in the middle of me trying to get them to go, I was trying to push them to go into the kennel. I did that for about 30 minutes. And after a while, I was like, this is not working. And I got so frustrated. And she was frustrated with me. And I left the house, and I was in bad shape. I have allergies, real bad with certain dogs. And I left the house. My eyes were watery. And Lulu thought I was crying. But I was there. I was so frustrated. And I thought to myself, Lord, why? Of everything, I've got too much on my plate and have to add some more. And why? Why do I have to mess around with this? And I was sort of complaining to the Lord. And the Lord pretty much said, just shut up, dummy. And I said, man, I got to get these dogs in the kennel before she freaks out and I'm irritated by it. And in the middle of me just being frustrated, the Lord sent Brother Robert Rudine, Uncle Robert Rudine, come in the opposite direction. And I looked at him and I said, can you help me get some dogs into kennels? And he smiled. He's like, okay, let's do it. So he was herding them in and pushing them in, and we got them into the kennels, and we closed the door without me putting up a fight. I got scratched on my arms a few places. My allergies acted up, so I had bumps all over my arms. I was wrestling with these dogs, and I had this dog hanging off my hand. I was ready for just beating this dog, but the grace of God, or the mercy of God kicked in, and so I pushed him into the kennel, got her in, closed the kennel, and with all of that, you know what I thought, guys? I thought, God knows exactly what you need at exactly the right time. Isn't that true? I was ready to quit, man. And just when I lost my third win, God just stepped in and slowly said, I got this. and then sent Uncle Mingo my way Sunday night. Sort of sent me Uncle Mingo's way, and he blessed me last night with some good music. So that was a blessing too. So just want to encourage you this morning before Uncle Ron, get the right uncle. Uncle Ron comes up and teaches. You could come up, Uncle Ron. But just wanted to say, even in the little things, we realize how God is good, right? Even just having Levi and Komo help me this morning, man, that's a relief. That really puts a lot of pressure off of me, and I'm very blessed to have them in my life. All right, I'm going to get Uncle Ron Hibbert, part of our church now for about 2 years. Him and Auntie Monk a little longer. She's just been here more. And the story so goes, I was sitting here and I thought to myself, we could give it to one of the boys, Uncle, and they can hand it out, but okay. I was sitting with I was driving in my car and I thought to myself, I need a break. I need to get other guys to teach. Uncle Mango's been teaching, and so I thought to myself, we have guys that have been in the service industry or that's been doing things for long periods of time, and they're professionals at what they do. And so I thought to myself, one of the best things that we could learn from is money. Did you know the Lord spoke about more about money than almost anything else combined? The Lord is very, one of the greatest things He said is, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Where you invest your time, your talents, your treasures, that's where you're going to be. And so I thought to myself, okay, who better to teach about finances than a guy who's babysat finances for, what, 40 years? 40 years. So Uncle Ron, without further ado.
That's quite an introduction.
It's all on you, Uncle Ron.
You know, it has taken a while to get used to the customs here. I remember the first week I was at church. The first guy I ran into was Uncle Boy. And so I walk up to him and I put out my hand and I said, "Hi, I'm Ron." He says, "I'm Uncle Boy." And I'm thinking in my mind, I must have got that wrong. So I asked him again, could you say what your name was? Because I didn't want to say it. And he said, "Uncle Boy." Of course, if you watch any of the movies, like some of the old James Bond movies, or some of the movies that starred Burt Reynolds when he had the Camaro and he was running around, the sheriff was always a white guy with about a grade 2 education and an IQ of about 50. And he would call everybody, his deputies, everybody, call him Boy. So all I was used to was that boy wasn't something you'd say to anybody. So I said, "Hi, Uncle." And then after church, I saw him and I went over and said, Can you explain to me something? Do you want me to call you Boy? And he goes, "Yeah, that's my name." And of course, that's the last thing I would call anybody back in Canada as Boy, because that's not exactly something you call anybody. So you get used to the culture, because the culture, everywhere you go, the culture is a little bit different, and the culture here is wonderful, but it's a little different than what I'm used to. So if I bumble around a little bit, forgive me. I'm not trying to be rude. Anyways, today we're going to talk about financial planning. And I spent my entire career helping people get to their financial goals. So the first thing you need if you want to be successful is you need a plan. You need a plan that is like a roadmap. Now, most of you don't need a roadmap because Molokai has got to be one of the few places in the world where it's impossible to get lost. There's so few roads here, you generally know where you are within maybe 100 meters. So it's not something you need on Molokai, but if you go to the mainland or you go to Canada where often it's 100 miles between towns, and the country is almost 5,000 miles across, a map's a handy thing to have. And, unfortunately, a lot of people, they just wander aimlessly through life. They have no goals, no direction, no purpose. They wake up every morning with no focus, and it's like getting in a canoe without a paddle. They just float downstream and hope the current takes them someplace nice today. But Henry Kissinger, who's Secretary of State, he put it very well. If you don't have a plan and you don't know where you're going, every road leads to nowhere. And to be successful, we need a roadmap not only for our lives, and I'm going to be talking about that in a couple of weeks, but you also need a roadmap for your finances. Luke 14:28, in the Revised Perverted Version, talks about an individual who's going to build a tower. And of course, if you're going to build a tower, you need to figure out how much it's going to cost. A modern day skyscraper. You know, a skyscraper in the town I come from is probably going to cost you $200 to $300 million to build. So that's the equivalent of a tower. And well, you want to make sure you've got enough resources to finish it, because if you don't, you're going to look a little bit like a bozo. You know, you're going to be the laughingstock of your half-built building that's going to take you and all your investors into bankruptcy. So financial resources are important, and they're a tool in your life, and they're a test in your life. They're a tool because it gives you the ability and freedom to help others. And those are the most important things that you have to remember when you're planning your finances. Managing your resources is also a test. In Luke 16:11, it's asked the question, if we're not trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, can we be trusted with the riches in heaven? We need to recognize that the resources God gives us come in many forms. And He works at a schedule that is different from our schedule. So we have to be awake for opportunities. It reminds me of the old story where there was a preacher who fell in the ocean and the guy couldn't swim. And of course, there's a boat that came by and the captain yelled out to the preacher, he said, can I help you? And the preacher is flailing around and calmly looks at him and says, no, God will save me. And a little later, he's ready to go down for the third time, and another boat comes and asks the preacher, can I help you? And the guy says, no, God's going to save me. Of course, the guy drowns. And he goes to heaven. And the first question he asks God is, why didn't you save me? And God looked at him and said, what are you waiting for? I sent you 2 boats. So it's doubtful that God's going to send the archangel Gabriel with a winning lottery ticket for you. That is probably not going to happen. Typically, the opportunities it provides are more subtle and often involve sweat equity. And you might find that there's other ways than you thought where you can save money. You might end up with a job that's half the distance to work, and you save $150 or $200 a month on fuel. You might find you get an opportunity to have another place to live, which cuts your living costs in half. So there's a lot of opportunities God gives us to manage our money. It's just we have to be awake for them. So let's start by looking at what is a financial plan. Now, a financial plan speaks to what you want your life to look like in the future, and then builds a roadmap of specific actions and benchmarks you will have to accomplish along the way to ensure that you have the financial resources available at the time you need them to accomplish those goals. Let me read that again, because this is something that you should underline or asterisk. A financial plan speaks to what you want your life to look like in the future, and then builds a roadmap of specific actions you need to take along the way to ensure that your financial resources are available at the time you need them to accomplish those goals. Now, what are major financial goals? Well, for most people, they're things like helping your kids get married, helping your kids get through school, financing a house, funding your education, maybe financing a personal business, getting out of debt. It could be helping your kids with their wedding, maybe funding a hobby or retirement. Maybe you like to fish or you like to play a musical instrument. So there's a lot of things that you can do, even helping your kids with a down payment on their home. I remember when I was 9 years old, My brother and I were too young to go camping. So we had a beat up old tent and we camped in the backyard, and that was before we could afford sleeping bags. So I found 2 sleeping bags that my brother, who was 5 years younger than I was, so he was 4 and I was 9, and we'd go sleep out in the tent outside. We thought we were having a big adventure in our backyard. So the sleeping bags were $14, and I didn't have $14, but I got 10 cents a day to buy milk at lunch. And the school year was about 180 days. And I figured if I saved my dimes for 140 of those days, that I would have just enough money to buy sleeping bags in April and May, so when it got warm enough to go out in the tent. So I put my dime away every day, and by April, I had enough money to buy my brother and I a sleeping bag. So my first venture into financial planning was sitting down in grade 6 and figuring out exactly how many dimes I had to save to get my sleeping bags. And my mom passed away a couple of years ago. I went in the garage, and up on the top, there's still those 2 old sleeping bags are still there. So once you figure out what your goals are, then you prioritize them. So you go down the list and you say, this is more important, and you put it higher up. Or, if, for example, if you're a young person, probably far more important right now to pay for your education than it is to buy Porsche 911 Carrera 4S Targa, right? Maybe it is, maybe it is. But you want to prioritize your goals, and when you're younger, there's some things you want to accomplish first. And the advice I give you if you're young, don't worry about retirement when you're 20. If you can do things like pay off your student debt, fund your education, get your first vehicle, focus on those things and get them out of the way early in life. But you want to prioritize and then rank your goals in order of importance and then time sequence them. So now you've got a list of goals. Next thing you want to do is cost out your goals. So if you want to have an education, figure out how much it's going to cost you. Then look at, well, can I go to a place where I've got a relative, or can I get a couple of the first years online so I can cut my costs down? So you want to figure out on each one of these goals, once you've got them prioritized, how much they're going to cost you. If you don't have a price tag on them, you have no goal. And it's important to cost out your goals, because then you know how big or small a commitment you're going to have to make to get there. The next thing, and this is the hardest for most people, is preparing a budget. Now, when most people think of a budget, they think of a muzzle or a spiked collar put around their neck, or a choke chain that's going to keep them from doing all the things they want in life. Well, a budget shouldn't do that. What a budget should do, it should help you focus on whether your income is being directed efficiently toward the goals you have. Budgets should inspire you to reach for your goals, not inhibit you because going, well, I can't do this, and I can't do that, and I can't do this. But if you look ahead in the future because you've got some goals, but I will be able to do this, and I will be able to do that, and I will have this. So it takes you out of the present and into the future. A little different, but I mean, that's reason we're in church today, because we've got a present hope of a future event. And so our goal is the future, not so much the present. Same with financial planning. It gets you to focus on what's just over the next horizon and helps you get there. Now, once you prepared a budget, in other words, what resources do you have available? You've got to calculate, what have I got right now? Can I improve on that? And a budget is simply figuring out your financial resources that you're currently spending right now. Next is you pick your financial tools. And financial tools, there's a number of ways that you can calculate this, because once you know what your goals are and you know what your income is, then you've got to figure out, using a financial calculator or a financial program, how to get there. And you can get these at a number of places. If you're dealing with a bank or an institution, often they'll have a financial planner in their office or a financial planner that comes through every once in a while. And those services usually are no charge. Also, if you bank online, if you go online, generally the financial institution you deal with is going to have financial tools that are quite easy to use. In other words, how much are you able to save? How long are you able to save? Approximately, it'll figure out your tax rate, and then it'll tell you what you're going to have at the end. So these are not that difficult to use. And you can get your own financial software from Quicken. There's free financial planning software online, like wealthsimple.com. Or if you have a financial advisor or someone that helps you, often even your accountant, they'll have planning resources available for you that you'll be able to use to help you figure out exactly how to get to where you're going. Now, a couple rules of thumb here. If you're younger, don't worry about all this too much. The simpler the financial plan you have, the easier it is going to be for you to start. So don't worry about 40 years out in the future. Concentrate on getting your education and getting yourself set up early, like maybe a house, and think about the shorter term. The second rule of thumb is the more complicated you make it, the less likely you are to do it. I had a friend of mine who was in the business, and he did financial plans for people. If you went in to see him, you come out with a plan that was probably 40 pages long. And you know what would happen to that plan? It would either quietly slip in the garbage, it would be used as fuel for your barbecue to get it started, or it would politely go up on the shelf and you'd never look at it again. So I always use the KISS plan. And the KISS plan is very simple. You figure out how much you can save monthly or annually. You multiply that by the number of years savings will take place. You multiply that again by your rate of return. You subtract the taxes you're going to pay, and you get a total saved. I called it the Hewlett-Packard 172B financial plan because I could do it on a little calculator like this in about 30 seconds. So when somebody would come in to see me, I would just punch the numbers in and say, well, are we on plan? Are we off plan with the things that you need and your goals that you have? So you want to keep it very, very simple. Once you have the numbers, then you start playing with them. You know, you start saying, well, if I can't reach my goal in 10 years, maybe I can reach it in 15. And maybe I can get a little better return if I move from just a daily interest account and I invested in maybe some land, or I invested in some equities like stocks, or you know, my brother-in-law needs a loan he'll pay me 3 or 4%. You know, so you start investing, looking at ways that you're going to get better returns, and so you start playing with the numbers. And well, maybe you can't afford a Porsche 911 Carrera 4S Targa, but maybe you can afford to use one. So you jiggle with all your expenses until you get them to the point that you can manage to meet the goals that you have. So it takes some playing around. And that's why a program is really nice, because you can change the numbers until you find something that you're very, very comfortable with. So once you've got your plan, you want to set out by paying yourself first. The problem with saving is always the problem of the end of the month, the bank account is empty. There is virtually no one that I know of that saves by putting away what they have at the end of the month. By the end of the month, there is nothing left. So the way to save is to pay yourself first. And we talked about compounding last week, and we're going to have a Bible study just on saving alone, on how to save and how to make your savings really work for you. So you want to pay yourself first, whether it's an automatic deposit, withdrawal out of your account at the bank. Maybe it's a mortgage payment. If you buy a house, you're on a forced savings plan because every month you're chopping down the principal. So there's lots of forced savings, but you know that if you've got a home payment, that money's going to come out at the beginning of the month. If you're on a pension plan at work, you just know that money's going to be taken out of your account before you even get your paycheck, and that's the best way to save. Now, once you've done this, then review. Every 6 months or so, it doesn't have to be exhaustive. It's sit down someplace and pour yourself a nice hot cup of tea and just spend 5 minutes or so just thinking, am I on track? What can I be doing better? And then go back and re-add that to your financial plan. And finally, life changes. As you get older, your goals change. As you get closer to retirement, you're going to go from the working world where you're taking in money to a retired world where you're going to spend the resources you have. So life changes and so does your plan. So revise it as necessary, or every 3 to 5 years, pull it off the shelf and spend a few minutes looking at it. And if you've got someone that's helped you with it, give them a call and say, look, do you have a few minutes to help me review my plan? So having clear financial goals is not confining. It's not a leash or a muzzle or somebody standing over you with a whip. It should be liberating. It should allow you to reach your goals and your dreams and help you serve.